I want to be a good God, good things.
There's no such thing as good gods.
Some of them are good.
There's more to life than gods and titans.
Okay guys, if you've been following along with this presentation, you'll notice that I've been trying to prove that the Greek and Roman gods, these supposedly mythological beings, well, they have a really strong influence on our reality, and the elite still worship them. And I'm trying to prove that, well, history may teach you that the Romans conquered the Greeks and they adopted a lot of their customs and practices in order to appease the people, and then they later adopted Christianity. I think it's quite opposite. The Bible clearly talks about these ancient civilizations like Egypt and Babylon, and how the Bible was written at the same time frame. And I think a lot of these gods were one and the same because they were in Greece and Rome, and because they were bestowing a lot of their Luciferian and esoteric wisdom upon the people. And in fact, let's take a look at the pictures here. We're going to take a look at how the Greek and Roman gods are one and the same, and how they just changed names slightly. Now, if you don't believe me that the elite or the Illuminati still worship these Roman gods, then ask yourself why there's a painting in Washington called the Apotheosis of Washington. Now, apotheosis means to become a god, which is the core belief of this Luciferian system. And the whole painting is George Washington, a well-established Freemason, receiving wisdom and knowledge from Minerva, the Roman goddess of wisdom. And we've already examined how we've named the planets after these Roman gods, like Mars, Venus, Pluto, Uranus, and Saturn. And we also examined how days of the week are. And in fact, we're going to go back with the Roman creation story with the start of this presentation, and it's very similar to the Egyptian one. Basically, out of chaos, order is formed, and if you'll notice, that's another core belief of these Freemasons, order ab chao, order out of chaos. We're going to take a look at Albert Pike and Morals and Dogma a little later. But anyway, out of this chaos, order is formed, and the Greek god Kronos comes, and he basically takes over, and he wants to become the ruler. Anyway, later a prophecy is made that one of Kronos' children will overthrow him, and he will be imprisoned or something like that. I don't know this too well, so we're going to research it more later. Anyway, Kronos begins to eat all his children, and then his wife Hera, she saves one of their babies, and it's a lot like Moses, and one of their babies that saved grows up to be Zeus, and Zeus ends up overthrowing Kronos with the help of his three brothers, which end up being Pluto and Poseidon. And that's a lot like the biblical story of the fallen angels. Okay guys, we're going to take a look at these symbols here, and if you'll notice, they're not only the symbols of the planets and Roman gods, but if you've studied the occult before, you'll notice that these are also symbols of demonic black magic as well as in alchemical formulas. And that's because the elite have known how to contact these Roman gods since the dawn of time through their occult-like rituals. And then when they make a pact with these spirits, they gain their powers, and then that way they can become famous or gain wealth or become an alchemist or a magician. And if you look at celebrities like Beyonce, and they talk about their alter egos like Sasha Fierce, Nicki Minaj has Roman as well as Martha, and they just talk about how they become possessed by the spirits, and that's how they gain their influence.
Imprisoned in the underworld by his sons Zeus and Hades, none are prepared for the wrath of Kronos, father of the gods, king of the Titans, destroyer of the universe. Once betrayed by his children, Kronos returns for his revenge. When the Titan King rises, the world will end. When the Titan King rises, the world will end.
let's move on, though. Now, here's another source. C.W. Leadbeater, but I was already talking about this. So he says in the book, the student of occultism therefore learns to awaken and train for scientific use the powers latent within him. He learns that each man is in essence divine, a veritable spark of God's fire, gradually evolving towards a future of glory. Now, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's why a lot of these guys get deceived. That was Satan's lie from the beginning. Knowledge makes you a god. And I don't think that's true. I mean, it may make you enlightened, so they like to call themselves, but it doesn't make you a god. Now, let's keep going with some of these pictures here. Here's some of my visual aids. Now, I learned about this picture, the apotheosis of Washington, where Washington is ascending to a god here. I actually got a little video of that I'm going to include, hopefully. And this here is where the Roman, it's very important you take note that these are all Roman gods and goddesses. This here is Mithra bestowing her ancient mystical knowledge upon Benjamin Franklin and the guy F.B. Morse, I think his name is, for Morse code. Now, isn't that interesting? Because the ancient Egyptians are said to have done the same thing, as well as the Babylonians, what do you call them, the Aztecs and all of them. You know, they were said to have achieved their knowledge through star gods and all that. And before I keep going to the Illuminati, I wanted to finish the visual aids up. So, the book I heard that from is from Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol, and if you're thinking that sounds familiar, it is. It's because he wrote the Da Vinci Code, and it's really interesting. I never read his stuff until I saw that it intertwined with my project, and then I went and read all his books. As you can see, Angels and Demons, Lost Symbol. Anyway, he's talking about Washington and the Masons and all that, and he talks about that painting. And he does a lot of good research, and he has a really great way of blending a fictional story into great research and making it, you know, making people ask questions. But a lot of people can't separate the fact from the fiction. So this book was pretty cool. Anyway, here's some of the Freemason symbols that we're going to discuss. The G is actually for God in geometry, a dual meaning. The I, it can mean quite a few things. They call it the Eye of Prominence or Providence, one of the two. And I still think it's from the Eye of Ra, the ancient Egyptian sun god. The important ones are the pillars. There's always two pillars. I can't remember exactly what they were. And then the checkered floor is important. Then you'll see the trowel and all the square and compass and all their building tools. Here's a picture of George Washington. I don't know if it's from the cover of this book or what, but this is the picture of George Washington laying the cornerstone of the Capitol building in a Masonic ritual. It was very interesting. It also had to do with the constellational alignment, as well as the degree that they angled the cornerstone in. Now here's the Baphomet seal. Now Baphomet's known for doing the as above so below pose, which we'll get to in a minute. Anyway, these are allegedly Hebrew letters, according to my research, which stand for Leviathan. This is also known as the Goat of Mendes, Satan's seal. As you can see in the Satanic Bible from Anton Szandor LaVey, it's the exact same thing. And what's interesting about him is he said, remember that these are all Roman gods and goddesses now. The Roman god Lucifer was the bearer of light, the spirit of the air, the personification of enlightenment. I found that a little interesting. We're going to get to some Albert Pike quotes where he talks about Lucifer being the light bearer and Masons deceiving the truth from their lower level initiates. So there's a lot to this conspiracy, people. Now here we have the Baphomet and Washington doing as above, so below. We're going to condense. You see we got a pentacle, the five-pointed star on his forehead. There's a really deep meaning to this. It's really pagan, and I don't have time to discuss all the symbology here. Anyway, you'll see he's pointing as above to a good white moon, and then below to a black moon. You can see he has breasts, and that he's masculine and feminine. One arm, we can't really tell, but one arm's masculine and one's feminine. You can see these dual intertwined snakes, which are the logo of the World Health Organization. That's also got a deeper meaning. Now here's Washington. As you can see, it's kind of disguised with the sword in his hand, but I mean, it's quite obvious once you research Washington's history and know he's a Mason and what as above, so below really means. Now here's some Masonic lodges I found through a couple, and as you can see, there's the G, and there's the Baphomet star, the pentacle they use, and when you invert it, that's when it becomes satanic, and that's when it's used for, ancient evil rituals, I think, according to Satanism. So there's some proof that could be Photoshopped, I don't know, but it looks like that is actually, if it wasn't inverted, it would actually be a pagan Wiccan symbol for earth, air, spirit, and fire, and spirit,